don't go and buy lots of stupid things. As I said, do nothing includes buying.
Yeah.
You can buy something, but don't change your life.
Yeah.
Go and buy an enormous house, a fleet of cars, an aeroplane, if you've made enough money. That won't make you happy. The less moving parts you have, the simpler your life, generally the happier you'll be, and happier your family will be.
Ben White. He's sold 3 businesses so far for $80 million, $88 million, and $800 million. It was the last exit 16 years ago that hit him hard.
What people don't tell you is when you build these businesses, you build your little world that makes sense to you, where you're respected, where you're developing people and watching them grow. It was a family. And so suddenly your family's gone. And no one prepared me for that. That day felt like the loneliest day of my life, probably.
What followed was a dark decade filled with divorce, addiction, and significant financial losses. However, today, Ben is the happiest he's ever been. In this episode, we discuss his hard-earned lessons on happiness, why he started his 4th business now and walked away from running his VC firm. Hi, Ben.
Hello, good morning.
You are unique in so many ways. You had 3 super successful exits, but I know that it was the last one, which was in 2009, that hit you really hard.
It was 2008, actually.
Okay.
We closed the day Lehman Brothers went bust.
Oh, of course you did.
Yeah.
Of course, it had to be 2008, of course. So in 2008, which is long ago, which is great because it means that you had a chance to process the lessons of that. But I also know that you refer to the following 10 years of your life as the dark decade. I would love us to go straight into that because it would be very helpful for my audience to understand that experience before we start talking about your previous exits or the way you build businesses, because I know that experience changed you quite a bit and the way you look at the world. So could we go back to that day in 2008 and just tell me, to start with, how you felt when you sold Message Labs?
So it didn't just change me, it changed my whole life, it changed everything, or it was the start of the change, if you like. RBR Networks with Rory, my school friend, in 95, 96, and then we grew Star out of RBR Networks, and we grew Message Labs out of Star.
Yeah.
So Message Labs was the only one that I sold where I didn't have a nascent business that I'd been working on for a while that I could then spin out and start working on. It was the first time, since I was a teenager, really, that I didn't have a business that I was working on. So that had never happened to me before.
Yeah. So that hit you hard, that suddenly you no longer had the business. Why do you think that happened?
Well, first of all, I don't think anyone prepares you, right? You've done something, you've obsessed about it day in, day out, all hours for years and decades in my case, and then suddenly you sign something, and in my case I'd already left the business. There was a professional CEO in the business, but I was pretty involved. I was speaking to him a lot, and suddenly you sold it, you got a huge amount of money in your bank account, and then that's it. There's like nothing, right? I've got nothing to do at all. At the same time, I was getting, my wife and I, probably a lot of it my fault, I'd already made a decision we weren't going to work. So at the same time, we decided to go our separate ways. So I had no business that I was working on, and I was going through a messy divorce. So not a great combination.
Yeah. I can very much relate to it, as you know. I had exactly the same combination. It was my first exit, but also a divorce at the same time. These are 2 huge changes in life. So, okay, and how did you handle that?
Just huge amounts of drugs and alcohol, really, I suppose. It worked brilliantly. No, it was just lonely and horrible. It was what people don't tell you is when you build these businesses, you build your little world that make sense to you, where you're respected, where you're, developing people and watching them grow. And it was a family. And so suddenly your family's gone. And no one had prepared me for that. And it felt, so to go back to your question, that day felt like the loneliest day of my life, probably. And I would say I filled it with lots of very poorly thought out business decisions or investment decisions that I thought, if I invest in this, I'll be able to live vicariously through it, and I will get that same sense of purpose. And anyway, that same feeling would come back if I invested in these businesses. And I made a lot of poor decisions, partly because I'd never invested in other businesses other than my own. And also, no one prepares you for the fact that you've got, if you just exited, you're on everyone's list to call if they want to raise money for their new shiny thing.
Yeah.
And really, you should spend a year doing nothing, thinking about what you want to do, grounding yourself again, and thinking about what you want to do with the rest of your life, with this freedom that you've bought.
Yeah.
Do you need to go on working? Do you need to go on making money? Is it making you happy? Am I happy? All the kind of logical questions I didn't ask myself. Or maybe I did ask myself and I just thought, I'll do it again and then I'll be happy. I'll build a Google and then I'll be happy.
Of course. And then now you look back at it and you see a lot of waste, right? Waste of money, waste of energy, waste of health in your case. And
I wish I could talk to me in November 2008. I wish I could talk to myself then, knowing what I know now, and things would have turned out very differently.
Let's do that. You're talking to me and I'm you back then. What would you tell me?
I would say take a year, do absolutely nothing. I would say, Ben, we can talk all day long about whether you're an alcoholic, a drug addict, or whatever. Actually, that doesn't matter. What matters is it materially affecting my life and my happiness? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, you need to do a lot less of it, or probably none of it, and stop doing it. I can remember saying to myself, well, I'm not an alcoholic. I don't pick up a bottle of vodka at breakfast and have it with my Frosties, so I'm fine. And I'm sure there are tons of people listening who fool themselves in exactly the same way, but whose life is, and whose not only their life, but anyone who comes into contact with them, particularly their wife and their children or whatever, whether they like it or not, are massively affected by this behaviour. Even if you're doing a half decent job as a parent, you're miles away from being connected to the kids and being present. Miles away. And they can sense that and they can feel that, and it makes them uncomfortable and it makes them feel insecure, and it makes it much less likely they're going to be happy kids.
So you would tell me, and now I'm you, back then, to deal with the addiction as the most urgent thing to do.
No, I don't want to make too much of the addiction, although that's a massive part of it. You need to deal with this amazing event that that's just happened. You need to stop being naive about it. You will be treated differently by some people. Lots of it in a good way, right? But lots of it not in a good way. People will take advantage of you. And especially if you don't have a next gig or anything to really pour yourself into, you'll probably be fairly gullible.
Many of us find it very hard to say no to people like that, and in particular to people who are close to us, family or close friends or partners we feel we owe something to. How did you deal with that, with saying no?
I never said no. That was the problem. One of the things that I've learned is if you do great things for someone, whether it's an act of kindness, or whether it's helping them out massively financially, don't expect them necessarily to be grateful in the way that you might think they would be, because in a way, as time goes on, they resent it.
Yes.
You've done this thing for them. Perhaps they've been successful themselves, and now it's an inconvenient truth how they got there, perhaps, that, you know, because you helped them out in the way that you did, so they resent it. That's their problem, of course, but it's your problem in terms of how do you deal with that, because it doesn't make sense, right? Why are they not grateful?
I also found, for example, that giving a loan to someone is always a bad idea in this situation, because if they actually wanted a loan, they would be able to get it somewhere else, so they're asking for a gift. But if you give them a loan when they actually need a gift, that destroys the relationships. And the formula I came up with years too late was that you just decide whether I want to give that gift or not, without any expectation, as you correctly say, to get the money back or to get appreciation and gratitude. But it's not easy.
Yeah, I think you never give a loan. I mean, you may call it a loan, but never expect it back.
Yeah, but if they know it's a loan, I found that then they resent you even more, because then it's very uncomfortable for them. They can't return it. They don't want to return it. You become a creditor instead of a friend or a family member. It changes who you are to them, and that damages the relationship.
Unless you're very careful with how you position it, for sure. Yeah. For me, the most important thing is just don't expect it back. Put a red line through it right away. And if it's friends and if it's really close friends and family, don't expect them to be grateful for long.
Okay, fantastic. So we have quite a few lessons already. Do nothing for a year. Don't expect gratitude from people.
Don't go and buy lots of stupid things. As I said, do nothing includes buying.
Yeah.
You can buy something, but don't change your life.
Yeah.
Go and buy an enormous house, a fleet of cars, an aeroplane, if you've made enough money. That won't make you happy. The less moving parts you have, the simpler your life, generally the happier you'll be, and the happier your family will be. You know, where's home is a good example for people with multiple homes. That's unsettling for children if they don't even know where home is. So you're depriving them of the very thing that kids need, which is interaction with other children. But because you're so wealthy, you've got a security detail and this and that, your children are deprived of interactions with other children of the same age. Unless, of course, it's in the confines of some weird security guy sitting in the corner. How strange is that?
How many children do you have?
2.
When you look back at that dark decade of yours, what would you do differently as a parent?
That first year, I would have immersed myself in, you know, the one thing that I found as the kids are now 16 and 18, it's they've just finished GCSEs and A-levels, and I found when things are tough and when things aren't quite working out at any aspect of my life, immersing yourself in children is an amazing tonic. Because you have to be present. They don't care about your problems, and it's a wonderful antidote to problems. Yeah. It's a wonderful way to make yourself feel peaceful and complete, if you like. And if only I'd known that then. Yeah. But I didn't have the time. I wasn't in the right headspace to do that. Anxiety. I had a lot of anxiety caused by drugs and alcohol, but I also had, and therefore I wasn't present. And then the kids didn't, as a result, they wouldn't really engage. There are lots of people who wonder, why weren't my kids engaged? They weren't engaged. You can't just pick one morning and go, right, I'm going to be a great dad. It takes months for them to know you're there, you're consistent, you're always available, and little by little by little, they'll let you into their weird little world.
You need to build that trust for them to open to you emotionally.
Yeah, I remember with my eldest, this is back just when I just stopped drinking, so 5 years ago, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, we had something happen in the kitchen, he threw a plate, it smashed. I didn't lose my temper. He went to his room and I went and sat. There's a baseball glove, like a giant baseball glove, which is a seat. And I sat on that and I had a packet of peanuts, and I said, I'm not angry. I just wanted to understand what happened then. And nothing. And then I threw a peanut at him. And I said, I'm going to throw a peanut every 60 seconds until you give me something. 45 minutes later, and a bag of peanuts. And he goes, can't say the reason, but he goes, this was the reason. I go, and he said, that's all you're getting today. And then little by little, you get let in. And it's the same with friends, right? They've got to feel that you're in it with them. Mm-hmm. They've got to feel that you're supportive. They've got to feel that you care.
What triggered your decision to address your addiction?
I think my fucking life was a car crash. Mm-hmm. It just suddenly became obvious. I looked at my youngest son, who was very ill with anorexia and bulimia at that time. I think he weighed 29 kilos. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I looked at myself and the impact I was having on him and just thought, oh, God, I'm not happy, right? Whatever happened, whether it's rehab or whatever I do, I need to give someone the keys to my life for a couple of months, mm-hmm. go away, switch off, think about what I want, and come back with a plan as to how to be happy, actually. Because mm-hmm. if I'm happy, I'll probably be a decent dad and a decent mate. It was the first time I'd given someone the keys mm-hmm. and said, right, and then you know where you're eating every day, you know what meetings you have to go to, someone else is in charge. I loved it. No one can call you, text you. You're just left with your own thoughts.
So that one stay dealt with it, or was there more?
No, that was it.
That was it.
For anything you're doing in your life, it's about a decision. And when you've made the decision, it's much easier, whether it's smoking, drinking, mm-hmm. whatever it might be. It's a lot easier.
What I've noticed that sometimes people almost want someone else to make the decision for them. And I see it in relationships between, these people and coaches, therapists, rehabs, doctors, trying to delegate a difficult decision. Mm. So did you seek any professional help for other mental health issues, like you mentioned, anxiety, for example?
I was so caught up in held by this addiction and constant, you're constantly hungover or trying to feel better. Mm-hmm. Or you might, in my case, I might not even drink for a week, a month. So I thought, well, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. But you don't realise, but then you're doing a 2 or 3 day bender. And that takes a lot of time, especially as you get older, to get out of your system. So you're permanently anxious. Mm-hmm. So you're trapped in this cycle. And so no amount of therapy would have helped me at that time, mm-hmm. unless that therapy had got me to put everything down and go and take 2 months to think, to get all of the crap out of my system, all of the alcohol, all of the drugs, all of the coffee, all of this, all of that. Mm-hmm. So your body has a chance to recover, because your brain's a muscle, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're permanently pummeling it and abusing it, it'll start playing tricks on you. There's a reason for that anxiety. They didn't just happen. Mm-hmm. And I think they'll treat it with a pill or whatever, but actually there's probably something there, and mm-hmm. very often it's something that they're doing or drinking or snorting. Yeah. But they've thought, oh, I don't do it very much. It's fine, but it's not fine.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's not even about substances, but it's about not addressing something that's important. I think anxiety exists for a reason. Our nature gave it to us for a reason, I'm sure, as everything else. So,
well, we need it because when we were animals, we need that anxiety. Otherwise, we wouldn't get up and feed ourselves.
Exactly. When I look back at my life, and I had periods of extreme anxiety, now looking back, I know that I had been delaying some decision, or I delayed understanding something. So now I'm trying to be a bit better at respecting these moments of stress and anxiety, to try to follow it and see what it is my body, my brain is trying to tell me that I need to address, and I'm ignoring it, or I'm not being honest with me about some circumstances.
Or maybe you accept the anxiety at that time because you go, actually, I've got that A, B, C, and D. I'm bound to feel a bit anxious right now. That's okay. That's all right.
I guess if you come to the conclusion, it's part of your personality.
Anyone gets anxious, right? Depending on, I don't know, it can happen in any situation. Yeah. Getting all the kids to school, they're all late, they've lost something, their cricket bat, whatever, and you're anxious, like, I'm not going to make, one of them's got to get a train, the other one's getting driven. Well, of course you get anxious.
Yeah, I guess these are more like everyday stresses, right? And anxiety is more, to me, something that wouldn't let you sleep at night, or just makes you...
But don't the everyday stresses feed into the anxiety?
Yeah, probably. So you said you would take a whole year to do nothing but figure out what this newly found freedom actually means to you. So you didn't do it back then. You were busy doing other things. But have you had a chance to do it later?
Yes, I'm a late starter. I'm 56 years old. It's taken me a while. I've never been happier than I am today. And it's just all the little things. Do you know what I mean? Actually, like I talked about, whether it's the children, cooking something for yourself, preparing stuff for yourself, picking strawberries, going to the butcher's, picking the meat that you want to eat that night, or the fish, or the whatever. I think it's all these little things that seemed so mundane to me at the time. Actually are the richness of life, and they're what balance you.
But I assume that it only became nourishing when you learned to appreciate them.
Yeah.
Right? And stopped looking at them as annoying chores and actually welcomed them as experiences in your life.
Yeah, like coming out of the shower yesterday morning, that there's no I know there was a towel there. The kids have all come in, they've all had a shower and just taken all the towels away. And of course I get out of the shower, no towel. And so I have to, anyway, lucky old me, I've got to go naked to the cupboard. Obviously I've got a big house, I've got to go all the way to my big cupboard and come back. Oh, poor me, right? And I'm feeling pissed off. I'm thinking, why are you pissed off? Because you've got a big house and the cupboard's miles away with the towels in, or because you've got kids that are all happy hanging out and showering in your bathroom and wanting to be part of your life. What exactly are you pissed off about? Oh, nothing. Actually, would you have it any other way? No, I wouldn't. Actually, it's lovely. I'll laugh about this tomorrow, which I am now.
Yeah. So you basically trained yourself to have a different mindset and reaction to situations like this. Yeah. And you wish you would have done it in that year after the exit and would have saved a decade of your life.
For whatever reason, it has got me to this point where I've never been happier, more grateful, just feeling fulfilled.
How did you get there? So one thing, you learned to appreciate the mundane things in life. What else you would say?
Go and spend time with your real friends. Not your business friends that you've made, who have all become potentially, all been very successful like you or whatever. But the friends from school who will say, Ben, actually, you're being a bit of a dick. Can we just go to a normal restaurant with normal people and normal food, not some fancy place with and have a normal conversation and just hang out?
Yeah. So you didn't realize that you were kind of avoiding something that would be very nourishing for your soul?
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
Because you thought you needed to do what instead at that time?
I was searching for that security that I'd had for those 2 decades of building those businesses. Yeah. I was someone, I had, life made sense to me at that time. And I was trying to make life make sense to me again, so by investing in silly businesses.
Can we talk a bit more about that? Why that was the case? How it felt for you after you lost those businesses, that you also lost that sense of security?
Well, you don't know. You drive into work, or you get the tube or whatever, and you go there, and your receptionist says, "Morning, Ben." You've got that lovely sense of everything works. I'm known. I know them. They know me. I've worked with them for a very long time. I feel I belong. I feel I've got purpose. I think they respect me. You've got all of that, and suddenly it's gone, and that's removed. And for anyone to think that that's not going to have a very profound effect on how you think and feel, that's a bad error. You are. It's going to have a massive impact on you, and you will fill it with something.
Yeah.
It's a question of what you fill it with.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And yeah, I bet you, if you interviewed 100 founders who'd had successful exits, they would all tell a very similar story. If you like.
So when you mentioned that you invested into all of those silly businesses,
they weren't all silly businesses. You understand? There were lots of there were some decent decisions, but there were an awful lot of bad decisions as well. Yeah.
The way I understood you is that what you regret is where these decisions came from. That they didn't necessarily come from the right place, because you actually were looking to restore that comfort zone, that security, that world.
Yeah, I wasn't doing it for a commercial return. I was doing it to make myself feel better. Because I
Exactly.
thought that I would belong again.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that at the time,
Yeah.
but that
Yeah.
was what was behind that.
This is exactly what happened to me, so I very much understand it. But it took me years to understand that, I was looking for that belonging again. Another part of it was identity. I didn't want to admit to myself at the time that I really suffered from not having a clear identity that I could kind of, a label even that I could put on myself. I felt kicked out of the ecosystem.
Yeah, it is your
where I
identity
belonged.
if you do it.
Yeah. So I would love to hear how you now, looking back, feel about the loss of identity at the time.
If I was talking to myself then, I'd go, it's okay to feel weird. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You're finishing one book, but you're picking another up.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone that reads regularly, you know that feeling at the end of the book when you go, oh, I'm feeling a bit down, until you find another book. And you might find several other books before you find one you really like.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel a bit shit and a bit weird and a bit lost for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But take ownership of that vacuum and
Yeah.
decide what to do with it.
So how would you go about it differently in addition to what you've mentioned before? I just want to make sure I extract all lessons from you.
Well, the first thing, you can't pick your new book up unless you're centered.
Yeah.
And you can't be centered if you're doing too much of anything, whether it be sex, drugs, alcohol, whatever. You need to be centered, or mixing with, a lot of people, and I mean people who get big exits, especially my business friends in America. If you're starting to hang out with billionaires, that's weird. Right? If that's now your life, that's a very weird, myopic, not a good representation of people. More generally, these people have nobody saying no to them. They start to believe their own bullshit, and generally, how many friends do they have that were friends when they were at school or university? Probably not many, right? So that's probably not a healthy group for you to hang out in.
But did you, talking about that, because you went back to having real friends quite a few times in our conversation. So didn't you find that those old friends also changed the way they talked to you after they knew that your financial situation changed dramatically?
A bit.
How
Not
did you deal with
my
that?
real friends. No, they were still. They were. Ben, you're being a dick. Why? Could be anything. They were still authentic, but I should have seen these friends on their terms, not on my boat, on my plane. Do you see what I mean? I was starting to stack the cards in my favour so that I could basically behave the way that I wanted, because they had to, because they were so I'd have kept it much lower key. If I'd paid for a holiday for them, I would have paid for a half decent villa somewhere, not in a fancy pants area where everyone felt more comfortable.
Yeah.
Where I'd have probably got more genuine response from them.
So how do you go about it now in terms of when you think about your social circle? Whom do you want to see there?
In the 5 years since I stopped drinking, I've worked pretty hard. I've worked incredibly hard on my family. And I've got a small number of very close friends. And also we've had COVID and stuff, and it just hasn't been a very social time.
What is your criteria for what you want to keep in your life and what you want to remove from it?
Keep? Just my dogs, really. But, the less staff you can have, the better, basically. Because the kids fucking hate it. Right? They come down and go, Dad, who's this? Well, you can't. I mean, my children are permanently taking a piss. Can you not do that yourself? But recently, I was called a domestic weapon. Apart from my cooking's got to improve and my ironing's shit. But the fact that they watch me struggling to do it, even if I fuck it up, is brilliant. How many friends I've got who every half term and every holiday, the kids are off. They're off to another fancy place. But they're never allowed to be sat at home bored. So again, when I say simplifying your life, that it means holidays, it means everything.
Yeah.
Really.
I love that you mentioned boredom. Why do you think it's important kids get bored?
because that's where creativity comes from, right? You have to be bored from time to time. It's important.
Yeah.
And all we do is fucking overstimulate them continually.
Yeah.
And I mean, and for ourselves, right?
Exactly,
We can't sit on our own, can we?
No.
I mean, I don't use social media, really. Because it's just, you can't help it, can you? It's like, oh, stop it. And then, of course...
Another addiction, right?
Yeah, and then, of course, anything you do look at, you get fed more of. And that's happening to every one of us all over the world, and whatever views, opinions, or how we feel is just getting reinforced. Even if that's only the view of a very small minority, we think it's not. And I think we'll look back at it as the kind of cancer of our generation.
Because again, I think nature created us in such a way that we copy other people's behavior because we're tribal animals. So lots of that copying happens very subconsciously. So we look at social networks, we see all these people, and we don't filter them in terms of whom we want to copy.
Yeah.
And for children, it's even harder, but it's also extremely hard for the adults. So, for example, what I noticed in the post-exit founder community is that lots of people keep copying each other's mistakes. So they look at what other exited founders do within the first few years. Pretty much everyone does the same thing. It's angel investing or starting a new business. And they just do the same thing because that's considered the right thing to do. And often it's not conscious.
There's not much original thinking anymore, and that's the problem with AI as well. It's just reinforced. It's just, anything we do is just reinforced.
Yeah, and the social media actually shows us more of what we like to see. So we end up not seeing the other side of the story. And you and I talked about it before. You actually need to go at great lengths to hear the other side of an argument because it will not come to you naturally.
Even newspapers are clickbait now, aren't they? So, journalism used to be a bastion of people would die trying to write the truth. They may be left-leaning or right-leaning, but they wanted to print it. Is that true anymore?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So going back to your life, because that's what we are focusing on today, at some point you and your brother together created a venture capital firm.
Yeah.
After your third exit. So tell me why and where it is today.
So this is a great example of I should have taken the year off, right? I didn't even think about it. The guys wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And the idea was that we could have much more of a work-life balance as a venture. We could take August off, as they all do. But that's not criticism, it's fine, but that's what they do. And I thought that I could live vicariously through these investments and sit on lots of boards and help them and blah, 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 blah. None of that is true, right? You can't help them. You're not in it. You're not in the tent. You can introduce them to some helpful contacts. You can nudge them so they don't come off at the faster bends. But that's it. They're going to do it with or without you. You're not going to be the reason they're successful or they fail. The successful founders will find a way to be successful. And it won't be because they've been on some course run by some venture capital firm on relative successful SaaS metrics. You don't need to look at a firm to know whether it's successful or not. Right? Do you have customers? Is the margin decent? Are the customers happy? Are they going to stay with you? And have you got a decent sized market? And are you able to build a pipeline with a relatively modest sum of money that you convert over a period of time? And if you pour money in the top of your machine, roughly what comes out the other end? It's no more complicated than that, is it?
Yeah, common sense is the most important thing in business.
Yeah, you don't need to look at all the metrics. It's obvious. I was the founding money of the venture firm. 70% of it came from me or whatever. What I hadn't considered is I made a lot more money than my team, who worked for me. I mean, they were all very wealthy in their own right, but nothing like as wealthy as I was. So I didn't need to work. They did if they wanted to live in Notting Hill and continue to do the whole thing, as it were. I also hadn't expected what it would feel like not to be their boss. And I also hadn't thought about the sorts of behaviours that I might see coming from them, the greed. We sold the business for was a little under $1 billion, and I saw behaviours from some of them that I'd never seen before, of greed and horrible, and that I started to see that, and I'd never seen that from any of them. A bit, but not quite that, and I started to become uncomfortable at that point.
Like what? Give me an example or illustration.
We sold the company, and like all these exits, you've probably got 1 or 2% of unallocated share options. Someone said to me, "Well, let's just split them between you and I, Ben." And I said, "But what about people who were unfortunate with the last grant or whatever? Let's go through the 700 people and work out who was unfortunate. Why do we need to do that? We don't need them anymore." I went, "Right, okay."
I see.
That kind of horribly egregious, self-indulgent behaviour.
Yeah.
When we started the venture business in 2009, we decided to concentrate on B2B and software as a service. And it was hard then because the cloud hadn't really quite happened, and when we were raising money, people went, "Ben, it's very niche, this B2B cloud thing." And I was like, and what I should have done, which I wanted to do on several occasions, is bugger off for 5 years and say, "I'll come back when it's a thing."
Yeah.
And so I went from, in some ways, having had this amazing sale to running around with my bucket trying to raise money for my new thing, and people, so it's like I suddenly felt, oh God, well, this doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
And we just didn't, at the early stages, we didn't find many interesting companies, to be honest. It was quite early for us, I think. It's not to say that people who do them are bad people or anything like that. It just wasn't me.
No, absolutely, because you're probably much more of a builder and operator, right, than an investor. But you have a brother, and that brother built Message Labs together with you, and then you guys both started the venture capital firm together. Why do you think it worked for him, but it didn't work for you?
He loves sitting down. He loves shows, meeting new people. And the only new people I wanted to meet were potential customers or potential employees. Anyone else was sort of not interested. Or I'll spend the time with my family. And he likes that. He likes going to shows. He likes going to around the world to, meeting other members of the venture community.
Can you quickly tell my audience what Up is and how you came to the decision to start a new company after trying to be VC? Because you're basically an entrepreneur who became an investor and then went back to become an entrepreneur.
So one of the businesses I invested in, I met a 26-year-old guy called Drew Smith, ridiculously bright, slightly socially awkward, but a brilliant brain, and he's only got better with time, and I've now known him 6 years. And together I was selling the business that he was currently working for, and he came to me and said, "Look, I've got an idea for a new thing. So when you sold it, maybe you could take the money you sell it for and put it into my new thing." So I got him to pitch it to me, and I kind of knew what it was going to be. I'd already told him I want to be in the intelligence business and data business. This is going back 4 or 5 years, so before AI and become the buzzword. And we quickly worked out that paid media, so in other words, paid media would drive 80% of Google, Meta, being TikTok's revenue is all paid media. If it's shopping, it's on Google, it's the carousel that when you're searching for a product. If it's a form fill, it's trying to get a form fill. If it's holidays, we've all done searches for holidays, and you've been pointed at, they're one of 20 holiday firms that all advertise extensively. And paid media drives about 20% of all e-commerce sales is driven by paid media, sometimes up to 50%. So if you turn over 100 million as a retailer, you're probably spending 10 million between Google and Meta every year, 10 million pounds. So they're in essentially your new landlord, if you like. That's quite complicated, driving paid media, because you essentially taking all of your 10,000 products and deciding which ones to spend most money on that might sell. And they currently do that manually, basically. And because they do it manually, it's very hard to look at all the data they should look at when they're doing this. And so Drew's idea that we evolved together was, what if we were to automate drive paid media in an automated fashion? We could, by doing that, machines can look at far more data in real time than people ever can. Also, if you automated tons of disparate activities, once you've automated them, you can then have them all connected to one outcome. It might be, I'm prepared to spend £30 for every new customer. I want to make a minimum of 20% contribution on every pound of sales that I do, or whatever. But if all these activities are disparate, it's very hard to connect them all to one North Star.
Yeah.
So by automating something, you align all of these activities, connect them to a North Star, and you drive an infinitely better result for whoever you're doing that for. And we're just at the beginning of that journey, basically.
How do you feel about the whole thing and being an operator again?
Alive. I think it's sometimes alive and scared, sometimes alive and excited. But never alive and bored.
How much do you work?
I don't know, 50, 60 hours a week.
So would it be comparable to how much you worked on your previous businesses?
Harder.
You work harder now?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I would say those first...
But it doesn't bother you?
No, I love it.
Because most people, and you mentioned you were there as well, when we sell our businesses, the first idea is that, oh my God, it was so hard. I want to do something that's easier, which is why so many people are pushed into more passive investments. Right? We don't want to go through the pain again. But now you've embraced that pain. Why? Because you want
I'm a man, so I've never had a child. That's not possible yet. And I'm sure if you asked a young mother 1 year in, 6 months into after the birth, and you said, "You're having another child," never again. But 2 years on, the little person is running around, and they're it's lovely, and they're getting joy out of it, and they think, "Oh, life's amazing," and they go, "Should we have another one?" Right. And of course, you go on and have another child. And I think building businesses is a bit like that. You remember all the good stuff, and that's why and when it works, it's the best. There's no better drug. When you go and speak to a customer and they go, "Do you know what, Ben? All of the machine learning and AI stuff, I've been reading about it all. I've bought lots of it in the past, and almost none of it worked. I pay you whatever it is, 50 grand a year, and by the way, I get 10 times that back in value." And that's my dopamine.
Of course. I was just about to ask you about dopamine and adrenaline addiction, which you probably have, but embrace.
So that's my dopamine. They go, wow, we've got something, they're getting value from it, we're making money out of it, the people who are building it and writing the software, I can see that the people are using it, so that's great, and it's a very special feeling.
Does it give you a sense of purpose?
Yeah, I know, but I'm more balanced now. I have both. I have home and work, So home's tick at the moment, touching wood, and work, if I get the opportunity for Up to be, it's got the potential to be the biggest business I've touched, and I hope it'll be us.
Yeah, sounds like you're in a good place. Also personally, because you know what you're doing in terms of the skills, but you also seem to be in a much better place in terms of quality of your decisions. We mentioned that earlier. Right after you exit, your quality of decisions was very poor, but now it's different, right? Because you're in a different place yourself.
Yeah. It's also, this time it's going to be interesting without, you feel every speed bump. You're not drinking, not taking any drugs or whatever. Everything, you feel everything, whether that is good or whether it's bad.
I guess you could psychologically escape. Somehow.
I'm sort of being a bit childish, but you can't. So it's, and I can't wait for that feeling as it starts to scale, feeling all of it, if you know what I mean, and reading the room, whether it be a room full of customers, a room full of employees who are going, fuck, this is actually working. This is going to be a really big company. He's not mad. he said this would happen, and it is happening. Yeah.
So you invest your own money in it?
Yes, and some other people
And
as
other
well.
people
We've
as well.
got West Coast investors.
So let's talk about how your view on wealth changed over time. If we go back to the very first business you started, how important money or financial freedom was for you at the time?
Not at all. I just wanted to find... Well, actually, I just wanted a job. No one would employ me because I didn't have any A-levels or a degree or anything. And in truth, I just wanted to make enough money to pay my golf club membership, buy a half-decent bottle of wine on a Friday, and take a girlfriend out for dinner and not embarrass myself. I think when you're young, dumb, and full of cum, you think, I'm going to make... when I make tons of money, of course I will be happy. Because you only need to look at the pictures of people with money. They're all happy, right? Of course they're not, but... when I started out, it wasn't about money. It was just about having a purpose, having a business that made money, to be honest, and going, fuck, I found something I can do, actually.
Yeah.
And it was only once I got into it, I thought, well, this is fun. Oh, I'm quite good at this. Wow, hang on. This actually could be a properly grown-up business. I hadn't even considered that was possible. I remember there weren't loads of role models and loads of, there'd been bugger all exits in software at that point. In the mid to late 90s, it just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And then it becomes obvious, you suddenly cross the line of, well, I'm not just doing this to pay the bills and buy a half-decent bottle of wine on a Friday. We could sell this for a lot of money. And so your psychology changes. You move from one person to another, or one mindset, is probably better, to another. And you get the copies of the Country Life and Fast Car magazines or whatever it is, because you start changing, because you suddenly know this might be possible. And you're still loving the business, but your expectation is changing without you even knowing it. And you're suddenly going from, shit, I'm going to be in all likelihood, I'm going to be someone worth many millions of pounds or many tens of millions of pounds. And then without knowing it, the people around you are changing how they talk to you, how they react to you. You're someone, you've got status. And you don't even know this is all happening around you. It's happening without you knowing it. And you're changing as a result. Even if you're not very careful, you change completely. And then in my case, you sell one business and then you double down, going, well, I sold one for 80 million, I'm going to sell one for 800 million. And you keep doing it. And then suddenly, without knowing it, in my case, you're on I need to keep doing it, because every time I do it, I'll have more money and I'll be happier. I sold the biggest one for a little over 800 million. That suddenly became, I realised, well, hang on, this isn't true, Ben. You don't. Every time you make more money, you don't get happier. It's not a binary outcome. And I don't think a lot of people ever go through that realisation. Yeah. Maybe they, have a new wife or husband. They start mixing with new people, holidaying in all the, in inverted commas, right places, upgrading their friends, trying to go to all the, there's a circuit, isn't there, in London and New York, starting with the Met Gala, and they're on that, and getting invited to fundraisers, and your whole life has completely changed and become, the one thing it doesn't have is authenticity, and it's not grounded in anything. It's not real. With my children, I would argue that a lot of people say don't spoil them. I think that misses the point, really, to spoil children. Are they real? Because we all spoil our children compared to someone in other countries and other parts of the world. We're all spoiling them. to a greater or lesser extent. It's a question of, are they real? Do they get it? Do they understand where the UK sits in terms of fortunate to be just in this country compared to other countries? Are they fortunate to have the chances that they have? And even if they do go on a fancy holiday or a fancy restaurant, they get it. They're real. They go, I'm fortunate to be going here, and that's what I mean by real. And I hope mine are real. And that's sort of as a result of doing full circle over in the last 10 or 12 years on going, right, so all of this money's great, but I'd stopped being real for a while, I think.
Yeah.
And I think I've gone back to be Ben again and being real.
So what role does wealth play today in your life? How do you see it? Is it...
It purely pays the bills. That's it. And when Up is successful, I hope it'll be the most successful one I've ever done. I want to use that money and do something interesting with it. I don't know what, because there's no point in thinking about doing something when you don't know how much money you've got, and you don't know if you're going to have a big slug of money again. But I would do something real with it. Basically, I'm not sure what that is. Probably involve children.
Yeah, but I guess building a useful, valuable business is real because you're giving value to the world.
Yes, but I would have done it 4 times at that, and I'll be close to 60 or beyond 60. And I probably don't. I wouldn't do it again. I think I've had a good run at that. I'd like to leave behind something which is more of a legacy, and also something that my children could maybe get involved in to a greater or lesser extent. Because the challenge for kids who have very wealthy parents is because you can't hide it, right? You can't. It's there.
Yeah.
Even if they're never going to get their hands on the capital, they're still going to have some of the trappings. You can't go. So they've got something to some sort of, whether it's a charity, a foundation, a thing. Which is great, then that's maybe something they could do.
So what do you do to help them move in that direction, if that's what you want?
I think you're doing it all the time. It's not one thing, it's little things. You go into a garage and they'll see me, and I will always try and make the person working behind the till laugh. I'll do something stupid. And they've learnt that. I said, because that person's probably not having much fun. You could be the bright spot of their day, and that'll make you feel good and her or him feel good. Just interacting with the world around us at every possible, given every opportunity. An old lady walking across the wet road that needs help. Someone's dropped a bag in Sainsbury's and needs it picking up. All these little things, these interactions that we all used to do 30, 40 years ago as a matter of course, but now we've become more and more disconnected. That's the irony, right? We're in a more disconnected world than ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And therefore all those lovely interactions that used to happen don't happen anymore. And so that's a massive part of our self which doesn't develop. Kindness, empathy, in every aspect of what we do, and that kindness and that empathy makes you happy.
Yeah.
And people miss the point. It's not just for who you're doing it for, it's for you.
Definitely.
Yeah. You could argue kindness and empathy is quite selfish because it makes me feel good. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't have to. I think we miss the point with all the way that we're being told to, and we're being forced to speak to each other in a certain way, all this way. But what these minority groups miss is, if someone has a different opinion to them, they're not allowed to have that in today's world, right? Yeah. So I want you to be open to all of these things going on, but I'm not going to be open to you, because if you don't want to change and you're not interested, I hate you.
If you behave in a certain way, that's how you influence your children best, right?
They watch you, they learn, right?
Yeah.
They just learn, they pick it up if you keep doing it and keep doing it.
When do you think you realize that kindness and compassion are the sources of happiness more than what you used to think?
I wasn't unkind, but it wasn't as front and center.
You didn't connect kindness and happiness, right? Because you said you connected money and happiness.
Yeah,
Yes.
a little bit. Yeah,
So when did you connect
back,
happiness
connect,
to
reconnect.
Reconnect, yeah.
Probably 5 years ago. I've never been as happy as I am today, and it's no coincidence that that's one of the things. And when your children watch the happy, kind, empathy, they pick up on it. They become little people who, with that built in and programmed it, and they become happy.
And that's what keeps them real, because they know the real source of happiness.
Yeah, you put that well. Yeah. And I think that's what we miss as a society today. So when I went off on my rant, rather than trying to tell people the way to speak to each other, we're treating the symptom, not the cause. The symptom is we should be kind, thoughtful to everybody. We shouldn't be told to be to a specific group or minority, whatever. It should just be a default, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we need to change, go back to.
Maybe, we'll see. Or we're just not going in a
But
straight
we are
line.
very resilient as a species, and we tend to pull back from the abyss, don't we? Just when it looks like there's no way back, we pull back.
We've certainly done it before.
Yeah.
I keep digging into your wisdom. So you talked about how enjoying little mundane, simple things in life, appreciating them makes you happy. Are we missing any other important sources of happiness?
Nature.
Nature.
You know, you can't. Well, look at. Isn't this the best time of year in the West, in the Northern Hemisphere rather? You know, it's just June, July when everything's green and you look out and it's not as grim, horrible. Particularly if you're in the countryside, and that it's hard not to smile. Do you know what I mean? Especially if you've got a couple of dogs doing stupid things and then you're watching other people enjoying it. It's amazing. It's just such a simple thing. The other thing I've done since I've been a bit more available, I've found people I used to work with coming back to me and saying, just lately actually, saying, Ben, you got me to do stuff. And I know that I did, you know, on reflection, and I've probably got 100 letters that I've collected over the last 30 years, or some big, some small, but yeah.
So having that impact on the people, helping them achieve more of who they can be.
People have much more capability than they realise. They can go further than they think. It's often their own anxiety around failing, maybe.
Did you achieve that by pushing them hard or by inspiring them, or both?
If you inspire them, you don't need to push them. They'll push themselves.
How did you do it and how it changed over time? Did you always have this?
I think I've always had that.
You always
I've been very lucky. I've always had that. I've always been able to sell a vision, a dream, an idea, and get people excited about it and get people to rally behind that and come play on my team.
You didn't need to be too pushy or nasty.
No, I was never like that.
You mentioned legacy before. How do you want to be remembered?
As someone who was part of the first wave of software entrepreneurs in Europe, and very successful in that area that paved the road for future generations. Someone who did it the right way, right? Who wasn't a dick. They were kind and empathetic, inspirational, and got more out of people than they ever thought was possible. I want to be remembered for also for making a lot of people a lot of money, which I have. That's I like the fact that whether it's friends or investors, whatever, I've made a lot of people a lot of money. Okay. Or share options, I don't know, whatever. There are 30 or 40 people who've made several million quid because of me. I like that. And I want to be remembered as a good friend and a good dad, basically, I think.
Brilliant.
How's that sound?
If you don't mind, I want to quickly go all the way back and ask you, what do you think your parents did right to help you get where you are today? And maybe what they did wrong.
I think they provided a happy, loving home to nurture 3 children in. Dad gave me a lot of. Dad is very competitive. He's 86. He's still very competitive. He did the other day. He showed me his new LinkedIn profile. I said, "Right, why do you what?" He said, "Well, I'm thinking of starting again." I said, "What? You're 80, right? Okay." Anyway, the profile's good there. Right. He said to me once, we had an offer for the company for $200 million, and I said, "I'm going to take it. I've had enough." He said, "You can't do that." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because that's an insult to all the people who haven't been lucky enough to get to this place that you've got to, and you owe it to them to make the most of the opportunity that you have now." Now, actually, the deal fell through, and we ended up selling it for four times that. But that was his mindset. You're lucky to be in that position. There was no, because generationally, he wasn't about being happy, fulfilled, and content. He was about making the most of everything that you have and all the opportunities that come at the expense of whatever. That was, because I think that's the way that generation were wired. It doesn't make him a bad person, that's just who he was.
You seem to combine contentment and entrepreneurial drive, quite well. How do you reconcile them?
Sometimes they're not good bedfellows.
Yeah, that's why I wonder how you reconcile them. How do you put them in bed together?
I mix them up. Doesn't matter how much money I make, I won't get this time back. So I wrestle with that a bit. But I think I do an okay job balancing it.
It's interesting because I expected a different answer. I thought you would say that you're content with what you have financially and materially, but your drive comes from the desire to feel alive.
You'd be wrong.
And
I lost a huge percentage of everything that I made.
Yeah, which is you and I talked about it before.
So I need to top
a very
up.
common.
I'm not doing this particular one.
So you feel hungry now financially?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to ask you about that, because just to continue our separate conversation, that my observation is that it's almost impossible to find a successful exited founder who wouldn't go down financially before going up, if they ever go up or stabilize. And that is what happened to you. And you're saying now you're back to the situation when you're actually driven by money.
Yeah, well, I mean, not entirely by money, but it would be nice if something worked. Otherwise, my lifestyle probably can't continue as it is.
Yeah, interesting.
So, yeah, it's the first time that I've had a little bit of financial drive. It was before that was number 2 or 3 on the list of why I was doing things.
Yeah.
This time it's probably more front and center.
But that's fascinating. Why do you think that happened? Why did you lose so much of your exit wealth?
The average founders lost 50% of their net worth 5-7 years after. And there's a simple reason for that. In their business, they know everything about it. There's nothing they don't know. It might appear to people they're shooting from the hip. Mm-hmm. They're not. That idea's been synthesized, distilled, to death. And so the decision was quick, but it was quick because they've already thought about it. They given it lots of thought. And they know more about their space than anybody on the planet, probably. So they can afford to make decisions really quickly, and they're probably largely right. They sell that business, and they carry on behaving in the same way. The only difference is these are areas where they know fuck all about, and they have far less data. Yet they continue to shoot from the hip, and guess what? They miss.
So you think that happens in both investing and starting a new business?
100%.
Were your sort of mistakes, if you can call them, or wrong decisions financially, more in investing, or because you were too generous with your own business?
Both. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You need to give a business the right amount of money at the right time.
Yeah. So you didn't do that as much.
No, I fell in love with the businesses that I
other people's businesses.
in,
yeah.
And then I thought that they would. I kept thinking they're almost there, and the truth is, I've never been as successful in anyone else's business as I have in my own.
It's extremely rare that a true entrepreneur, especially a creative type, becomes a successful investor. These are such different personalities.
Completely different. Yeah, I believe that 100%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did it affect your decision to go back to business after you've tried to invest in other people's business?
Yeah, I failed dismally, and I thought I'd better get back to doing what I do best.
How come you dropped out of school?
Oh, I didn't drop out of school. They removed me. It was forced dropout. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'm sure today I would be dyslexic and I am. And in those days, they didn't get it. And so I'd rather be a fucking pain in the ass.
When did it happen? How old were you?
16, 17, yeah.
Before your GCSEs?
Yeah.
So the age of your younger son?
Yes, exactly that, yeah. But I think probably because I didn't go down the academic route, I didn't have all that creativity wrung out of me. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I was still childlike. And I think you have to be quite childlike to start, you see the world through those wonderful, naive eyes. Mm-hmm. And if you lose that, you're probably unlikely to be a founder anymore.
And do you think the education system gets it out of you?
That's one philosophy, yeah. I don't know, I never went through it.
True. Would you support if your sons decided to drop out of school or not go to university?
Only if they couldn't, because I think it's different today. I think also they've had COVID, so their friendship group's much smaller than it would normally be. I think with my kids live in a bubble within a bubble within a bubble. If they go, well, so I said, what's your other plan then? If you're not going to, what's your plan B? In those days, it didn't matter if you didn't have a degree, really. Not many people did, but now it's expected. But most importantly, I think it's a stepping stone to the outside world. They've never had to share a shower. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? They've always lived life on their terms. So they go to uni and live in halls, and suddenly they've got to live. It's not on their terms. So it's a step towards independence. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they just leave home and go, fucking hell, that's a bit of a shock, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So I think they will meet lots of new friends that will be friends for life, very important, and they will build up a whole new level of confidence as a result of this completion of their character, because they've had to, suddenly life's not on their terms, they have to share a loo, do the washing, pay the council tax, all that kind of crap that will complete them as a little person. Mm-hmm.
Didn't happen to you though.
No.
You found the different way to complete yourself.
Yeah. But at what cost? Just because maybe if I'd gone down a different route, I'd have got happier quicker.
Ben, thank you so much.
Okay.
I so much enjoyed the conversation.
Good, so did I.